It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmick Voice. Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmick Voice. This is Season 7, Episode 5. I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
What up, what up, what up?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to another show. Chris, how are you, Mick, sir?
Awesome, brother. I am doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. What have you been up to?
Nothing much, man. It's funny, just real quick while we're starting off the show, I was at a party last night, and somebody asked me how I was doing, what's going on, and what's new, and I was kind of just, giving them things, and I had said in that conversation that you and I were recording the Cosmic Voice the following morning. And somebody completely unexpected was like, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I listened. I listened to the show," and I was like, "Really? Like, not even in our, I don't even want to say wheelhouse. That's not the right word, but like, not a musician. She's married to a musician, but not a musician. Like, she's kind of in the scene, but not directly what we do." And I was like, "Wow, that's kind of interesting." That I guess because in my head and because of what we do, I always assume that. And it's obviously it's unfair, but I always assume that musicians are going to listen more than non-musicians. I mean, people that don't take the stage. And so I was kind of like, oh, wow. Like, I was kind of thrown back by it, as cool as it was. I was very, very flattered and honored. But I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting that she listens on a regular basis. And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, most of the people that I've talked to that have told me they listen to the show are non-musicians. I'm actually surprised at the fact that musicians don't listen to the show, or more musicians listen to the show. Yeah, because listen, in our business, everybody knows. Everybody already knows. Everybody's already a rock star. Everybody's always the best. They have all the answers. Maybe they do, and we don't, and that's okay. But I kind of wish there was a show like this 25 years ago, because I think I would have not have taken as many missteps. Maybe I would have. I don't know. That's not to say one way or the other. But having some of that information would have probably benefited me in the long run, at least maybe shortcutted some things, or red flagged me earlier, say, maybe I should just avoid that or something of that nature. But I'm not really surprised, because a lot of the people I've talked to are non-musicians. And I think it's that fascination, that interest of, what is it?
Yeah,
what's the life like?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, you think about, take your favorite rock band, your most popular favorite rock band, whatever it is. Not every single one of those fans are musicians themselves. They may be enthusiasts, or they're just people that enjoy the music and enjoy the party and the good time and whatever. But look at all that back in the day when VH1 had Behind the Music. I'm sure that millions of non-musicians listened to it. So it's kind of the same thing. Like, everybody wanted to know that behind-the-scenes thing and all that, and it's exciting. And
you're right. I guess I never really looked at it like that. But that makes complete sense to me now. Yeah.
I mean, listen, you are the motley crew of podcasts. I mean, come on.
Oh.
You know what I mean? We just don't have a tour bus with, craziness going on. We have an attic and a basement with bad Wi-Fi. With spotty Wi-Fi.
Oh, man. I guess so, dude. I guess when you put it that way, I guess now that, that does make perfect sense now that you put it in that way. Yeah, you're right. And I guess it does make more sense now that you say that.
Listen, when you get together with other bands, right, we've talked about this before. We talked about it privately. We've also talked about it on the show, and we've said it in jest, but it's always like you're always trying to outdo the other band's story. Well, we did this and we did that. Or, you know, like when you're talking like when Murphy's Law hits, everybody's got to have one better. Like, look at my scar. Oh, you think that's bad? Yeah. Well, this is what happened to me, so on and so forth. there's a lot of tragedy on the road per se, but not as bad as some tragedy that people have experienced.
Yeah.
And we should be grateful for that. And in hindsight, a lot of the stuff, especially that's happened with me and my bands over the years, I can look back and kind of laugh about it now. It's like craziness, and you wonder, how did I get through that, or why would that have happened, or whatever. But at the end of the day, as long as you get back home, I guess that's better than whatever. I try not to get myself too involved in those conversations. Every so often I'll throw something out there, especially when talking to a band that's only played 2 venues over the last 20 years, and that's all they ever do. And then they're trying to, whatever.
Yeah.
I do think that a lot of non-musicians listen to this particular podcast simply because they're just curious about what it is. And I've gotten a question several times, like, how do you guys survive? Like, how do you pay for everything? How do you do this and how do you do that?
Yeah, that I've heard. Yeah.
And that's from non-musician people, because they wonder how you do it, because there's this belief, like, if you're a musician and you're out playing out on a stage, you must be making good money. Because I've been fortunate to go to other countries and other parts of the U.S. and bigger venue names, people will go to me, that rock and roll money. I'm like, yeah, that rock and roll money. I go, half the time it doesn't even make enough to buy me McDonald's anymore with the prices of things.
Yeah. You had mentioned a couple minutes ago about, how bands are kind of, sharing scars and stuff like that. And, one of the cool things about being a person that loves to go see live music and loves music, you're surrounded by people that have the same interests, right? So, there's always that conversation of, and you and I even had a show about it. Oh, I saw this band when they were this, and I saw this band when they were nobody, and blah, blah, blah. Well, in my circle of musicians and musician partners and stuff like that, we have one young lady in our group that she saw Michael Jackson at JFK in Philadelphia during Thriller.
Oh, I did too. I seen him, when he came with his brothers during the Victory Tour, which was...
Right. So anytime we're all together, we're all like, oh, we saw Metallica here. She always goes, well, I saw Michael Jackson. I told her at the party, I said, listen, you don't have to bring that up, because any conversation you win, no matter who we saw.
Right.
Like, Michael Jackson during Thriller, done. You pretty much have beaten everybody.
Yeah.
There's nothing more I can say.
It was an amazing show.
Yeah,
I still remember.
I
I actually seen Kenny Rogers at the Valley Forge
Music Fair.
Yeah. In the early 80s. My parents were huge Kenny Rogers fans.
Well, that's a good one too, man.
And I
We
went
never
to that.
talked about that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of...
That's a good one, especially during that era. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the height of his. That was the height of his career.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really was. The funny thing is, looking back, I thought he was old, but he wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
He was just a little heavy set. He had that big,
had that gray beard,
and all. But yeah, he really wasn't that.
No, he wasn't.
His big song, "Lady," that was written by Lionel Richie. And if you listen to it with Lionel Richie in mind, you're going, "Oh my God, that's a Lionel Richie song."
Lionel Richie song.
Yeah.
He was so good. That Valley Forge Music Fair, man. That we're showing our age, but that was such a killer little venue. And for people that that are listening that weren't from our area, it was like this small. I don't even know. It didn't hold that many people.
No, it didn't.
It was a small venue, and it was constantly in the round. So the stage was constantly revolving in the round. And I saw Reba McEntire there, at the height of her career. I saw Howie Mandel there. I saw George Carlin there.
Yeah.
It was just a really cool little place to see a show.
It had been around for a lot of years, so it had that look and feel to it, but it was always clean and pristine. It was kind of almost like a snooty place in a way.
Yeah, it was.
But it was constantly busy. Back in the day, it was constantly busy.
I had shows all the time, and this is live. I'm doing this now. So it was seated for there's such a weird number. So it was seated for 2,932 people. I did not think it was going to be that big. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Which, again, they'll think about it now and go, "Oh man, that's kind of small." But no,
that is small.
But if you think about it, for that time, not really.
No, 3,000 people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what, dude? The final performance was Kenny Rogers' Christmas show in December of '96.
Wow. No.
And it was opened in 55.
Yeah.
That's crazy, dude.
I'm telling you, man, during that time, it made this area, there was a lot happening in this area. So,
Yeah.
Honestly, you forget about that until you talk about different things, and then it goes, oh yeah, by the way,
Yeah.
In this area, we used to have Mickey Rooney hotels. There was one out in Downingtown, and I forget where the second one was. but there was always stars coming in to do shows there. Comedians, singers, well-known people, because it was a hot place to play in that 70s and early 80s. All those hotels are gone now. There was some interesting stuff here for the longest time. And the funny thing is it wasn't all necessarily nested in Philly. I mean, Valley Forge was outside of Philly. Downingtown was what? 40 minutes, 45 minutes from Philly?
Easy,
at least? Easily.
Yep.
It was interesting. It didn't seem out of place. No,
it did not.
Now it's kind of way different. It really is way different.
Sad.
It's Ross the Boss.
Take it down.
Johnny D from Britney Fox.
Stephen Pearcy from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
All right, let's get to the topic, man. So the topic for this show is, are we too old? Can an artist age out? Are we too old? Can we get too old? And can an artist age out? What do you think, bud? I mean, are we talking about playing in the scene, being in that limelight, or are we talking like the whole package? Are we aging out of writing, playing? What do you think? What do you think about that?
Man, I don't know, because that's a tough one. I never, ever thought about my age up until, let me rephrase that. I never thought about my age playing, not even playing. I never thought about my age when it came to the scene, is probably a better way to put it. Until, again, and we constantly refer back to this, but at this point in time, really, that's when everything really changed. And I hate to keep repeating ourselves, but I never thought about my age and playing live at our level until after COVID. And I'm not sure what changed. I mean, we've talked about it numerous times, but there's these younger crop of bands, which is great, because now there are so many outlets for young people to hone their craft at School of Rocks or, whatever. But, you and I have personally run into experiences where clubs have actually told us that they're looking for younger bands. Like, they're not really booking older bands anymore, or older guys in bands anymore, because, I mean, the truth of the matter is our age group does not really come to shows. Family, work, in bed by 9, we're older, we're a little more tired, life is harder as we get older. I mean, we could go on and on of the reasons why people just don't come out anymore, but our age group, it's tough to get people out. And these younger bands and their younger fans have a different outlook on the scene. So it makes it harder for younger bands and younger fans to watch older guys. My guitar player in my one band, he has a side project, and they just did a DIY Halloween house party, right? We were joking because I saw him over the weekend, and it was all younger people. And my guitar player, he's younger than me, but he's close to my age. But the house they played in was all younger people. Like, it was probably like a college frat house, but it was like a college party. When him and his band were setting up in the dining room, he overheard a young lady say, "Oh, these guys are going to be good because look how old they are." But, like, I mean, it's legit, because listen, that age-old thing, us older musicians, we do it better. And it's just because we've done it all. We've been through it all. We're older. We understand things. It is getting harder because a lot of clubs are kind of pushing us out. And even with the resurgence of all these older bands in the past couple of years coming back and doing retirement shows or farewell shows, and, the change of how bands are doing things, they're toned down, the songs are slower, but they're giving those people one more chance to see said band. So, and that's sad sometimes. I know at this time, that video of Frankie Valli going around, it's super sad. Like, it's super sad to see a guy that was such a huge hit back in the day just kind of stand there and not even be able to move his lips, and he's just singing to a backing track. So unfortunately, when I see videos like that, I go, well, no wonder why nobody's paying to see these older bands. It just makes me sad because there's no life in it. Like I said, everybody's playing slower, everybody's tuned down. And I understand everybody's trying to make that last buck, and I totally get it. But I don't know, man. It really bums me out, because I know that guys like you, myself, people that we surround ourselves with, I know we have a lot of life left in us. I do. I mean, I feel it. You know what I mean? I know how I feel when I get on stage, and I know how I feel when I get off stage. But I know how I feel when I get on stage. I just know that I have a lot of life left in me, but I wonder if our scene is for us anymore. And it's a horrible thing to say. And, you know, we could still do things our way, the old school way. When making band decisions, I find that sometimes we make decisions based on our age. You know, that thing, well, it worked then, or it works for these bands, and these bands are older. Maybe it doesn't work anymore because we're trying to do something that worked in the past and not really catching up with what's now. It's hard. It's a really hard thing to face, that reality of we are getting older. And it's not a matter of like, oh, I'm getting older, when am I not going to be able to do this anymore? It's more of like, it's going to come down to, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore because of the scene is not allowing me to do this anymore. And that's kind of what I really feel like. The scene is pushing guys like you and me out. We're not pushing ourselves out from our age. Guys like you and I can still do it. But the scene is pushing us out. That's what makes me sad.
Let's consider this. There will be a time when just age in itself, you know, chronologically, that the capacity that we're doing things now may not be able to be achieved, right? For whatever reason. I mean,
Right.
Touring does take, especially for guys like us, because we're not touring all the time. We do it in chunks, and that's taxing. When you're doing
Yes.
it all the time, you get into a groove, your body gets used to it, you've been doing it, you know. That's the Indie in the trench type of approach to it. For the big boys, people are going to say, well, none of that's true. And you're probably right to some degree because, again, you're looking at, on the big boy end, I mean, these people have already been established. So a lot of mentality, and you've mentioned it yourself, is, hey, we got to see these guys because this may be the last time. But unfortunately, what's happening on that end, because they can't technically do certain things anymore because of their age, they're faking it.
Yes.
Unless you're Ace Frehley, and then you're not faking it, you're just butchering it.
You're just
So I got to give him that credit.
Guys like you should be faking it.
Right. Like there's guys that probably should be faking it somewhat. Like maybe don't put so much emphasis on that wig and get back into playing and getting your timing together. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And then you got guys like, and again, I don't know. This is all hearsay or whatever. Guys like Nikki Sixx, who looks like he's in good health, good shape, still moving around. Why aren't you playing bass?
Yeah.
If that's real. Okay, if that's real. How can you go all these years, even if you didn't know how to play bass then? And I'm going to give a real quick story. I played with several bands over the years. One was a national. The bass player, he was a young guy. I mean, he was young. So he probably didn't realize that he shouldn't be talking about what he was talking about. Anyway, he winds up saying he really doesn't play bass. We look at him like, I don't understand, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, prior to this band, I didn't play bass. He goes, I was hired because I had the look. He goes, and I learned a couple notes and what I could get away with to get up and started. So he goes, I'm really not a bass player. He goes, but I'm working on it. And I was like, oh my God. And I got to give it to him. And like, hey man, that takes a set, baby. If somebody offers you a chance, you just go, yeah, I'll figure this. You know what I mean? And in the market today, he's got more than 50% of it down. He's got the look and he's young enough.
Yep.
So, hey, I'll do it, whatever. The other band I played with, they had lost their bass player and they needed a bass player. So the singer had his girlfriend stand there with a bass, and she just used her index finger and basically just played one note, maybe two, just by sliding the finger down throughout the whole. So however their set was set up, their songs were arranged, they were able to get away with that. And it just filled in a thing. And she just stood there. I give these people credit for ingenuity. Get out there, do whatever you can. But my point is with Nikki Sixx, if any of that's true, the guy's been doing this for, I don't know, 45, 50, almost 50 years. He played apparently in the early days of Wasp, I guess when they were Circus or whatever. He played in London. Though those guys would talk about, too, that Nicky didn't play very well. I don't know. But listen, you could talk to guys about me. And hey, you know what? Mick didn't play very well. And I would say, yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you know what? Mick didn't play very well yesterday at rehearsal. Yeah, you're probably 100% right. And part of that for me is age. I'm starting to have a lot of issues with my hands. The issues that I've had for many years are starting to really take effect, that what I was doing before isn't working and I have to find a new way around. But we talked about that in a couple episodes ago as well. You know, when you want to change, like for vocalists changing, you change the tuning, you change the way you sing. Instead of using backing tracks, just bring it to, and you know, you brought up the example of Sammy Hagar, slowing things down, changing the tuning, like drop tune or whatever. Going back to Nikki Sixx, that if you've been playing all these years, sooner or later, don't you think you'd have to get better? I mean, some musicians have learned other instruments during their time.
Yeah. You would think, right?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, legit, isn't that what the Monkees did?
Exactly. I mean, and they did it in short time.
Right. Like, they learned their instruments because they were tired of faking it, for lack of a better word. You know, I mean, obviously they weren't great musicians, but they did it. Like, they learned, you know, to figure it out.
Well, they got better and they made a whole career out of it. And they did really well.
Yeah,
you know, for guys like you and me, even though we seen it in syndication, they were a huge inspiration for me.
Huge.
Like at the
Me too.
Yeah,
Me
I mean,
too.
listen, in the 70s, in seeing it in syndication, and we watched it here on Channel 48 on UHF, they were as big, and I'm not kidding you now, and I know people would be like, nah, that's got to be, you know, they were as big of an influence to me in music as Kiss was on the National.
100%.
Because I seen them every day on TV, sometimes 2 episodes in a row. Hey, Mike Nesmith may have been one of my things as a kid to wear hats. Like, I still wear on tour, like, especially during the winter. I have a hat just like his that I wear. The only difference is I got the little ties at the bottom because for some reason hats never stayed on my head. So
no, my hats never stay on my head either.
So I started going, you know what? I just got to buy one of them little ties. That's all. That's it. Boom, boom. I'm done.
But you know what, man? Like, for me, too, you know, not to make this a Monkees episode, but, you know, watching that and watching the joy feeling the joy that I got from those songs and watching the joy on my television. Like, I was connecting with that. I was watching these 4 guys, whether they're, you know, trying to get the girl or they're trying to get out of the haunted house, like whatever it was, I was connecting to these songs. I was connecting to these personalities because, as we know, and we've said it before, when you watch TV like that, when you watch it every week, like you said, sometimes 2 shows in a row, these people become a part of your life.
They become
and it's
real.
a weird thing, but they're in your house.
Yes.
So you connect to these people.
Yes. And
you connect to the songs. I mean, it was very, very long time later did I realize that they didn't even write, you know, the first half of their career. They didn't even write those songs.
Right.
And those songs are brilliant, but I didn't care. It doesn't, and it still doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter to me.
To
No,
me,
no, it doesn't matter to me.
Still, even to this day in 2024, some of those songs are simply amazing. And the feeling that I get when I hear it is the same feeling I get when I hear Van Halen. Like, it just gives me this sense of excitement.
Exactly. On a side note, and I know this doesn't have anything to do with the topic, but going back to the Monkees, when I was a kid, it was a slapstick type of comedy.
Yeah.
On another note, my father hated it. He couldn't stand it. He goes, these guys are nothing but Beatles rip-off. My dad was a huge Beatles fan. So seeing
that
this,
makes sense.
Right.
I get
so,
that aspect.
But for me, they were my Beatles. I was like, Beatles? What are you talking about?
Me too. Yeah, me too.
These guys are good. What are you talking about? And I guess I couldn't wrap my head around, as a kid, being told that they didn't play their own instruments. What are you talking about?
Right.
I'm watching them play. Anyway, what always got me, even as a little kid, is these guys would be, like I said, slapstick comedy, goofballs, whatever. You know, Peter was like almost like dumb. But then all of a sudden, they're playing and they're like serious. And I was like, that is so cool. You could go from one to the other, one to the other. And that stuck with me for years. I mean, even into my teens, into my 20s. It's like, hey, you could be a goofball. And then all of a sudden, when you're doing your thing on stage with the instrument, this is pro. This is the real thing. I don't know. That always, even today, it's like, hey, that's kind of cool. And, you know, because people go, oh, look at this idiot. And then all of a sudden, he's like, oh, wow, there's a whole nother side of him. But anyway, on the national level, it's definitely proven that these guys can keep going because they can keep going. Like, if you have that. And I think what we're talking about here is, are we getting too old? Do we age out? When you're still struggling to find a consistent audience, when you're still struggling to find your place in the scene, and as Chris pointed out, when the scene's changing, and the scene has changed multiple times since COVID, you want to admit it? Okay. If you don't want to admit it, that's okay too, because ignorance is the way it is. It's ignorant. The point is, it's real because you can't stop the clock. The other thing is it is a business, and these guys want to be able to draw crowds that are interested. And as Chris pointed out, people at our age, one, my audience is literally dying out, and two, they don't want to go out. They really don't. They don't want to go out because it's just time consuming. Weather, it's too dark. I can't see at night. Them headlights bother my eyes. It's expensive. It's tiring,
that too.
Right? I mean, again, there you're fighting age as it develops for human beings, period. So, that's a tough market. Earlier this year, I played a national, a place that I frequent. I'm friendly with the owner actually very well. Sometimes we talk for long periods of time. We've talked on the phone, so on and so forth. I was taken back in the office. We get caught up and stuff like that. And I was told, hey, Mick, listen, we're going to start phasing out some of the older bands.
Yeah.
He goes, so it's going to be happening over the next 6 months to a year. He goes, we really got to bring in younger bands. That's who bringing in the crowds. And that's the people that are coming out. They're trying to stay, for lack of a better word, current, which I'm not even sure what that is. How can you stay current when 90% of your scheduling now is tribute bands?
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I realize there's tribute bands for, Lady Gaga and some of these other current acts, but at the same time, is their catalog, maybe Lady Gaga, yeah, and there's also a visual piece to it. But some of these other bands or groups or acts or artists, is their catalog popular enough that a larger section of the audience would know who they are or what it is? I don't know. I can't necessarily answer that. Hence why there are tons of Ozzy tribute acts and Led Zeppelin tribute acts. I'm seeing, of course, Kiss has had tribute acts forever. Motley Crue, there's Journey. I've seen Styx. I've seen Foreigner. I mean, look, even major acts. Joey Belladonna from Anthrax is going around with a Journey band, a Journey tribute band. Zakk Wylde has his Black Sabbath tribute act, which, talk about a guy who doesn't stray far from the nest. I mean, he sounds like Ozzy singing, and then, then what do you do for a tribute act in the meantime? Let's do more Ozzy type stuff. Okay, well, there you go. AC/DC acts are becoming more and more popular now. And,
that's right.
And as we talked about, there's nationals coming through that these tribute acts are being booked for. And I know that's another topic this season. So are bands being aged out? Yeah. And this is why I truly believe that a lot of guys make the flip to cover and tribute acts. One, it keeps them working. True. Two, they don't have to think about anything anymore. I just pick the songs that were hits that people are familiar with, and I just play them. And I don't even have to play them well. I'm not saying that there's guys out there that are doing great jobs. And then there's guys out there that are kind of like, I don't know. But I mean, is that the alternative? Because the scene doesn't want you? I'm hoping not, but it's seeming that way. And it's kind of a bummer. Are we being aged out of writing music? Absolutely not. Whether our music is to the mainstream or not shouldn't determine whether we can still do that. If there's a physical or mental or spiritual or no interest at all, well, that's something else. That's a personal decision that, hey, maybe I can't do it this way or that way. Maybe I can't play anymore, but I can write music and have other people do it. If you can find that, that's a tough market to get into. But I have also seen that guys that stop being working musicians, and you can define that any way you want, they still stay involved. Either they manage bands, they book bands, they worked for a venue. And again, I mean, I guess you have to establish yourself as such. Maybe you have a name that carries with you. Maybe you don't. I don't know. Like I said, they write for other people. Some guys have gone in and become studio engineers. So there's a lot in the business that people could do. But if that's not what you want to do and you want to continue to play, hey, do so.
You are listening to the Cosmick Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
a lot of the bands that I do play with, I shouldn't say a lot, it's kind of mixed now. At one time it was. A lot of the metal bands that I played with in the local and regional scenes are older people. They're our age and sometimes even older because they're finding that they're the only people that are playing that particular music.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't see a lot of young people playing that kind of metal, that older type of metal, or even a root of it. If they're doing covers, but it's more of the newer metal and screamo or whatever. Or the other side is guys aren't doing metal at all, and they're just doing like a hard rock kind of arena sound, which is a little bit more digestible to a bigger audience. And I get that. I get it. So is it happening? I think it's happening. Can we mitigate it? I think we can to some degree, because it's funny, by the end of that show, was telling the story of that we were being told that we were one of the bands that were going to be phased out. The owner came up and says, I got some other stuff for you. Don't worry about it. We'll be all right. And I was like, well, okay. He says, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Because if you're delivering the way you should be, that may not be the biggest factor. This is also why you'll see bands that have been around for a large number of years and they go through member shifts. They'll often opt to go with younger players because visually it changes things for people. It also brings in new people because of those younger players. You know, for some of us, because I know when we got Mad T was younger than us, but he also brought in an energy that kind of changed the game for us. I mean, Judas Priest said that about when Richie came on board. He literally changed the energy. And it's not that he was a brand new, green, young guy, but compared to them, he was younger. Yeah. And he was full of life and all this energy. So that can be a plus, too. So that's one way to mitigate. If you're having a change of front person, younger singers are the way to go. One, because they can continue to belt out. Again, this is for metal or even for hard rock. When you want a singer that really delivers, well, sometimes your older cats just can't do it. I watched a band most recently. I'm not sure of the singer's age. I'm going to take a guess because he's dyeing his hair and he's still dressed in a certain way, but if you get up close, you can kind of sometimes tell. He's definitely, he's definitely in his 60s someplace. And is that a problem? Not at all. I mean, listen, I'm pushing them numbers. But the point is his voice is definitely not as strong as it may have been, and you can hear it. Yeah. You know how he's mitigating it? You can immediately tell they tune a little differently. You back yourself up with backing vocals, not backing vocals in a recorded sense, because there wasn't any of that, but you have more people that sing. Yeah. His drummer was singing. 2 guitar players were singing. Bass player was singing. That changes the game. So either you don't have to sing as much or you don't have to strain as much. But were there some notes that just didn't seem like they were there? Was it maybe not as exciting? Yeah, but you know what? The guy's still doing it. So he's pushing his limits. He's overcoming the challenges of that aging factor. And listen, if you're listening and you're 22 and like, listen to these old ads, man, somebody should take them out into a field and give them a shovel. Well, maybe you're right. But listen, bro, we're all heading to the same spot. How you go there is up to you. And you know what? Some days I'll walk myself out and have a conversation. Well, maybe it's time to start digging. It's happening, though. It is happening. I see it. I see it all the time. Yes. I see it all the time. Am I ready for a tribute band? No, I'm not. I know you're not. No. Have I embraced, and we've talked about this before, have I embraced doing covers? Yeah, why not? If you talked to me 3 years ago, I would have been like, no, hell no, I won't go. Fist in the air, I was fighting, you know what I mean? But now I'm like, who cares? I got like 15 albums out just with this band, and I can't even tell you how many EPs. So does it make a difference anymore? Nah. I've written enough original material, and I will continue to write original material because that's in my blood. But man, I'm having fun now doing some covers here and there. Are they mainstays? No, they're not mainstays. I don't even play them in the set. Why? Because they're not my songs. I don't make any money on them. Why should if I have the opportunity to play 99% of the time, I'm going to play my own stuff. Right. I've only played one cover a couple times, and that's been breaking the law. That's because we made a thing of it. But will we do other ones? Yeah. Will we add them into the set? Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? It depends. It's a band decision, not just for me. Right. again, you're going to come to one of my shows, you're going to primarily hear all original material. I could make stuff up and go, hey, this is a cover of, whatever. Most people go, yeah, because they don't know. So you can mitigate it any way you want, baby. Any way you want. What do you think, man? What do you think?
I will say, even though we are being aged out on our scene and our level, the kind of genres that you and I do, and it's proven, will always last. There's always going to be a crowd. That's why, at least for us, when we do these old school metal shows, there will be people there. Depending on what the lineup is, you bring in like an older National or whatever the case may be, because for you and I, there's a scene for our kind of music. There is. For a lot of these younger bands that are up and coming, to me, my opinion, I could just be showing my age, but a lot of that music is just a flash in the pan, because there's so many bands of that music, whatever that music is. But if you look at the music you do, the music I do, and look at the music that younger bands are doing now, look at the longevity. In my opinion, the music that bands are doing now has maybe changed through the years. You and I, our music has pretty much stayed the same. Same sound, same way we go about it, image conscious, old school, dirty, gritty. Our music has always been around, and I think it'll be around beyond you and I, where a lot of this other music is either going to, it won't die out, but it goes in waves. It's popular, and then nobody listens to it. It's popular, nobody listens to it. Kind of like what David Lee used to say, here today, gone later today. Same idea. But I think music that you and I do, I think, has shown the test of time. I mean, look, you can categorize yourself, you guys and myself, to go, we sound like this, our inspirations are this, our inspirations are still playing to this day on a very high energy level. There's something to be said, at least about that, at least the kind of music that we do, I believe will be around, and we have that longevity in that kind of music. And that's my opinion. I don't necessarily know if it's fact, but that's how I see things, standing in the middle of it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the type of music that we're playing is still gaining fans. Now, not by the numbers of the mainstream, right?
Yes,
but
of course.
There are still younger people gravitating towards it, because what happens is, in the metal community, I'm going to use that as the large umbrella that covers everything.
Yeah.
There is a tendency for people to always go backwards.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, they're going to discover Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Kiss, so on and so forth. Especially if they gravitate towards a particular band who then talks about their influences.
Right.
People that are fans of Pantera, this version of Pantera or the original version of Pantera or that glam version of Pantera. If you're a fan of Dimebag, you're going to go back and see his influence was Ace Frehley, who was part of Kiss, and then who was into Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Who was into Muddy Waters and so on and so forth. Yeah. So it keeps going back. I'm not saying that the other music doesn't have that, but like you were pointing out, because it's kind of like a one-stop shop, flash in the pan type of approach, the buck usually stops there. Yeah. Like, I'm sure I've heard some of Justin Bieber's music over the years. I'm positive I have. Could I distinguish him from somebody else? No, not really. My point here is what were his influences? I mean, he was 2 years old. What influences did he have?
Right.
Or you know what I mean? I know he wasn't two, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're
saying. And that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, on a side note, too, I just want to say that I've never heard, or at least I don't think I've ever heard any P. Diddy music, and I'm glad I haven't. And the other guy, Kanye West, I'm not even sure I've ever heard any of his music. I'm sure that I have, but just didn't know it.
Yeah.
But it's nothing that stands out to me. So why these gentlemen have such popularity in their music catalog, I don't understand. But that just may be my age. That may be my lack of interest or my lack of being I was already into other things at that time. I don't know. But my point is, I think that we can mitigate some of this to some degree. And just like everything else we've talked about in this podcast series in one season after another, This is a business, and just like with any other business challenge or low point or whatever, we need to come up with alternatives so that it can be successful, or that it can at least continue to move forward so that we can see change happening for the better. If change is happening and it's negative, which it happens all the time, again, if you're told you're being phased out and you may not be able to play that club anymore, well, then there you go. What are you going to do? Here's another thing. I've already been told that too.
Yeah.
I've already been told that. You and I had a private conversation. Playing a club for years. Years. We've had charity shows and festivals there, and we've done shows for shows there, and supported bands and brought other bands in. It was and then you're being told, well, you know, the numbers aren't the same anymore. And I get it. It's a business thing.
Yeah.
But you're fighting a system that you can't control.
Right.
There's a system that's happening that we don't have any control of. If that was the case, gas prices would be down, food wouldn't be so expensive, housing wouldn't be out the roof. Like, we're literally pricing ourselves out of living a half-decent life. The same thing's happening in the music world. Bands are being basically just pushed out, priced out, no interest. I mean, like I said in another podcast, I was told that you're too heavy to play with this band. Huh? Or you're not heavy enough to play with this band.
Right.
Okay, listen, I get it. If we were playing with some, just recently of this show, I'd say, like, we're talking recently, like, say, in the past 6 months, I did several shows on the road with the same black metal band.
Right.
With the full makeup, the whole bit, hey, we're going to burn everybody down and, whatever their routine is. They loved us. They were pretty cool, too. Like, I don't get into that kind of music, but music-wise, I mean, it was just intense. It was great. I'm not big on that singing. I've never hid that fact. But listen, you give credit where credit is due. These guys are out here. They're doing it. They've hit the road. They're taking the show on the road. They're doing their thing. And we're talking afterwards. We're just regular people.
Yep.
I'm playing with black metal bands. That's kind of considered the heavy of the genre, right? Am I wrong? I mean, maybe I'm not wrong.
No.
Okay.
You were not wrong. You were not wrong.
And I'm playing with them. Everybody seemed to enjoy it that was out in the crowd. And the people that didn't, well, they either had to wait around, went to the bar to drink, or they went home. You know what? Yeah. That happens even if it's all the bands are exactly the same. Yeah. They either like you or they don't. They wait.
On a national level.
Happens
Some
on
people only go for the openers.
That's right. That's exactly right, man. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's a business. We just have to figure out a way, if this is what we want to do, to work around it. You don't play them clubs anymore. Find other clubs. Here's the exciting thing. New places open up all the time. Maybe not as much as we'd want, but they're out there. They change formats. Owners change. Bookers change. Just keep swinging for the fences. If that's what you want to do, you keep doing it. Yeah, listen, we're getting old. But like Chris and I have talked about, I think we talked about it in last season, our plan is that we make the decision when it's time to call it quits. Not having outside sources say, all of a sudden we've hit and then we go, well, guys, I guess it's time we hang it up. Well, no, man. If that's the attitude, then that's the reason why you've been faced with some of these challenges, in my opinion.
Yep.
So keep swinging for them fences. Keep swinging for the fences. Or at least until someone else goes down. What do you think, buddy? You got anything else you want to add?
No, my brother. That is it.
Awesome. If you like that episode, check out some of our other episodes at www.thecosmickvoice.com. Step into the Cosmickverse and fill that void. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmick Voice. If you have a question, a topic idea, or something you want us to address, just contact us through our Facebook page at The Cosmick Voice. You can listen to The Cosmick Voice at Spotify, Breaker, Apple, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, and at thecosmicview.com. Check us out on Facebook at The Cosmick Voice.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Mick and I would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes of the Cosmic Voice. And you can get in touch with us through thecosmicvoice.com and, of course, all of the Cosmic Voice social medias. Take care and be safe.
You're listening to the Cosmic Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.